The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across a stretch of dusty highway in the middle of nowhere. The air was still, heavy with the scent of gasoline and wild sage, as Sergeant Major Bree Carter, guided her weathered sedan into the lone gas station for miles. The vehicle hummed to a stop beside the first pump, its exterior coated in a thin layer of dust accumulated over the course of her long drive. Bree turned off the ignition and stepped out, the door creaking softly as she closed it behind her. Bree wore a casual outfit, a simple pair of jeans, a fitted black t-shirt, and well-worn sneakers. Her natural curls were pulled back into a low ponytail, her face free of makeup, her demeanor relaxed. She wasn't the kind of person who sought attention, but her posture carried an undeniable air of authority, a quiet strength earned through years of special forces training. As she started pumping gas, the faint roar of motorcycle engines broke the silence, growing louder until it seemed to reverberate against the station walls. A group of bikers pulled into the lot, their leather jackets adorned with patches and crude insignias. The largest among them, a man with a shaved head and a jagged scar across his cheek, dismounted first. Tank. The name was etched onto his jacket in bold black letters. Behind him came Knuckles, a wiry man with a cocky smirk, and Viper, a lanky figure whose eyes darted around the station like a predator sizing up its prey. The three were followed by a couple of others, less distinctive but equally menacing. Bree noted their presence but didn't acknowledge them. She focused on the task at hand, the rhythmic click of the gas pump a grounding sound amid the encroaching tension. "Hey there, sweetheart," Tank called out, his voice dripping with mockery. Bree didn't flinch, her eyes fixed on the pump's digital display. "Don't be rude now," Knuckles chimed in, walking toward her with an exaggerated swagger. "We're just trying to be friendly." The comments grew louder and cruder, the bikers laughing among themselves as they closed the distance. Bree's heart remained steady, her expression calm. Years of training had taught her how to handle situations far more dangerous than this. She knew that engaging with them would only escalate the situation, so she kept her focus on the fuel nozzle in her hand. Knuckles was undeterred by her silence. He stepped into her personal space, his grin widening as he reached out to touch her arm. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Too good to talk to us?" The moment his hand brushed her sleeve, Bree moved. Her grip on the nozzle tightened as her free hand shot up, seizing Knuckles' wrist with a precision that made him yelp in surprise. In one fluid motion, she twisted his arm behind his back, forcing him to his knees. The sickening crack of bone echoed through the lot as she broke his hand, her grip unrelenting. Knuckles screamed, his voice cutting through the biker's laughter like a blade. Bree stepped back, releasing him, and he crumpled to the ground, clutching his mangled hand. "Stay down," she said evenly, her voice calm but firm. She turned her gaze to the others, her eyes sharp and unyielding. "Unless you want the same." The bikers froze, their bravado momentarily replaced by disbelief. Tank's face twisted with rage as he stepped forward, pulling a knife from his belt. "You think you can just do that and walk away?" he snarled. Bree met his gaze, unblinking. Her stance shifted slightly, her feet planting firmly on the ground. "You don't want to do this," she said, her tone carrying a quiet warning. But Tank didn't listen. Tank lunged forward, the blade gleaming in the fading sunlight. Bree sidestepped effortlessly, her movements fluid and precise. As his momentum carried him past her, she struck the back of his knee with a swift kick, sending him sprawling to the ground. Viper, emboldened by Tank's attack, grabbed a chain from his motorcycle and swung it toward Bree. The metallic clink of the chain, slicing through the air, was loud, but Bree was faster. She ducked under the arc of the swing and surged forward, delivering a sharp elbow to Viper's ribcage. He staggered back, gasping for air, the chain slipping from his grasp. Tank recovered quickly, scrambling to his feet. His knife was still in hand, and his face was a mask of fury. He slashed wildly, but Bree was already moving, her body a blur of controlled energy. She caught his wrist mid-swing, twisting it with enough force to make him drop the weapon. The knife clattered to the ground, and Bree delivered a powerful knee strike to his abdomen, doubling him over. The remaining bikers hesitated, their confidence shaken, as they watched Tank and Viper struggle to regain their footing. Bree's presence was commanding, her every movement deliberate and efficient. She was no ordinary woman, and they were beginning to realize it. "Enough!" Tank roared, his voice thick with rage. He gestured to the others. "Get her!" The two remaining bikers advanced cautiously, their bravado tempered by what they had just witnessed. Bree squared her shoulders, her stance unwavering. She didn't wait for them to make the first move. The first biker swung a crowbar, aiming for her side. Bree intercepted the blow with her forearm, the impact reverberating through her body. She retaliated with a swift punch to his jaw, sending him stumbling backward. The second biker tried to grab her from behind, but Bree shifted her weight and threw him over her shoulder, the force of the throw knocking the wind out of him. The fight was over as quickly as it had begun. Tank, Viper, and the others lay groaning on the ground, their pride and bodies bruised. Bree stood amidst the chaos, her breathing steady, her expression unreadable. The gas station clerk, who had been watching from the safety of the store, stepped out cautiously. He looked at Bree, then at the bikers, his face pale. Without a word, he pulled out his phone and dialed the police. "You okay?" he asked Bree hesitantly. She nodded, brushing a stray curl from her face. "I'm fine. They'll be fine too, eventually." As the sound of approaching sirens filled the air, Bree turned to her car, finishing up at the pump. She didn't feel victorious or triumphant, just relieved that the situation hadn't escalated further. But she knew this wasn't over. People like Tank and his crew didn't back down easily, and she would have to be ready for whatever came next. The police arrived moments later, their lights flashing as they pulled into the lot. Bree stood by her car, calm and composed, as the officers began to assess the scene. The bikers, battered and defeated, wasted no time spinning their version of events, painting Bree as the aggressor. But Bree knew the truth, and soon, so would everyone else. The wailing of sirens cut through the tense silence, growing louder as a pair of patrol cars pulled into the gas station lot. Their red and blue lights bathed the scene in a surreal glow, illuminating the battered bikers sprawled on the pavement. Bree stood near her car, arms folded, her expression calm but alert. The gas station clerk hovered near the door, wringing his hands nervously as the officers stepped out of their vehicles. "Hands where we can see them," barked the lead officer, a burly man with a commanding voice. Bree complied, raising her hands slowly, palms open. "No problem, officer. I'm the one who called this in," the clerk interjected, stepping forward. His voice trembled slightly, but his gaze flicked toward Bree with a mix of awe and relief. She was defending herself. Tank, still clutching his bruised ribs, growled from his position on the ground. "Defending herself? She jumped us. We didn't even touch her." "That's so?" the officer said, his skeptical gaze shifting between Tank and Bree. "Yes," Tank bellowed, emboldened by the arrival of the police. "She's nuts. Broke my hand for no reason. Arrest her." Bree didn't flinch under Tank's accusation. Instead, she pointed calmly toward the corner of the gas station building. "The truth's on that security camera. The whole thing's recorded." The officer followed her gesture and noticed the small camera mounted above the entrance to the gas station. He nodded to his partner. "Check it out," he ordered, then turned back to Bree. "You want to tell me what happened?" Bree's voice was steady, her words deliberate. "I was pumping gas when these men began harassing me. One of them tried to put his hands on me, and I acted in self-defense. When the others escalated, I responded accordingly. No excessive force, just enough to neutralize the threats." The officer's partner returned moments later, the clerk trailing behind him with a tablet in hand. "I've got the footage," the partner said, his tone grim. He played the video for the lead officer, showing Tank and his crew surrounding Bree, their aggressive postures unmistakable. The moment Knuckles reached for her, the footage captured Bree's swift, decisive reaction. The video continued, chronicling each of the bikers' failed attempts to overpower her and their eventual defeat. The officer's expression darkened as he watched. When the video ended, he looked back at Tank, who was visibly sweating. "Looks like your story doesn't hold up, pal," the officer said, his voice laced with disdain. He nodded to his partner. "Cuff 'em." The bikers erupted in protests as the officers moved in, their shouts a chaotic mix of denial and indignation. Tank glared at Bree as the cuffs clicked around his wrists. "This ain't over," he spat. "You'll pay for this." I wouldn't count on it, Bree replied evenly. As the bikers were hauled to their feet, a younger officer who had been observing quietly stepped forward. His eyes widened as he got a closer look at Bree. "Wait a second," he said, his voice tinged with recognition. "Aren't you Sergeant Major Carter?" Bree tilted her head slightly, studying him. "That's me." The officer straightened to attention, giving her a crisp salute. "Ma'am, it's an honor. I've read about your service. Operation Nightfall, right? Incredible work." Bree returned the salute with a nod, her expression softening slightly. "Thank you." The exchange left the bikers dumbfounded. Tank's bravado faltered as he processed the revelation. "She's military," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "Special Forces," the young officer confirmed, "highly decorated." The realization hit the bikers like a freight train. Their earlier confidence evaporated, replaced by a mixture of shock and dread. They had picked a fight with someone far out of their league, and the consequences were becoming painfully clear. As the officers loaded the bikers into the patrol cars, Bree glanced at the clerk. "Thanks for backing me up," she said. He nodded quickly. "You didn't need it, but yeah, no problem. You were amazing." Bree offered a faint smile before turning to the young officer. "I assume you'll handle this from here?" "Yes, ma'am," he replied. "We'll make sure justice is served." With a final nod, Bree got back into her car, ready to leave the chaos behind. But she knew the ordeal wasn't entirely over. The bikers were the type to seek revenge, and she had no doubt they'd try to twist the narrative in their favor. She needed to be prepared. The police station buzzed with activity as the patrol cars pulled up outside. Bree sat calmly in a side room, sipping water as she waited for the situation to unfold. Meanwhile, Tank and his crew were being processed in the main area, their protests growing louder with each passing minute. "This is bull! She attacked us!" Tank shouted, straining against the cuffs as he was led to a holding cell. "We're the victims here!" The officers ignored his outburst, their expressions stony. In the adjacent room, Colonel Jacobs, a tall man with a commanding presence, walked in. Dressed in a neatly pressed uniform adorned with medals, he exuded authority. Bree stood to greet him, her posture straight and respectful. "Sergeant Major Carter," he said, his tone warm but formal. "I came as soon as I heard. You okay?" "I'm fine, sir," Bree replied. "Just a minor incident." Jacobs nodded, his gaze sharp as he looked toward the holding cells. "I've reviewed the footage. It's clear you acted in self-defense, as expected, but I did some digging on these guys, and you'll be interested in what I found." He handed her a folder containing detailed records of the bikers' criminal activities. Assaults, drug trafficking, and harassment were just the tip of the iceberg. They were wanted in multiple states for various crimes, and their gang had a reputation for targeting vulnerable individuals. Bree raised an eyebrow as she flipped through the pages. "They've been busy," Jacob smirked, "and sloppy. They thought they could walk out of here with some fabricated story, but the evidence is overwhelmingly against them. They're not going anywhere anytime soon." Meanwhile, in the main area, Tank's bravado crumbled as the officers confronted him with the evidence. His criminal record, combined with the security footage and eyewitness accounts, painted a damning picture. The bikers' attempts to press charges against Bree were laughed out of the room. "This isn't fair," Viper whined. "She's the one who—" "Save it," the officer interrupted. "You're lucky she didn't do worse. You're facing charges in 3 states. You'll be in a cell for a long time." Tank slumped in his seat, his earlier defiance replaced by a sullen silence. The bikers' reign of intimidation had come to an unceremonious end, and they had no one to blame but themselves. Jacobs turned back to Bree, his expression thoughtful. "You handled yourself well, as always. But remember, people like them don't give up easily. Stay vigilant." "I always do," Bree replied. As she left the station, the weight of the incident began to lift. She reflected on what had transpired, feeling a sense of satisfaction that justice had been served without compromising her principles. The road stretched ahead of her, endless and open, a reminder that her journey was far from over. With the horizon glowing in shades of gold and amber, Bree drove away, her resolve unshaken. She was a fighter, a protector, and above all, a survivor. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, she knew she had the strength to face them. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of courage, strength, and justice. Bree's story is a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for what's right, no matter the odds. It reminds us all that true power lies in composure and integrity, even in the most trying circumstances. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tell us where you're listening from. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another story that inspires and empowers. We'll be back with more tales that challenge perspectives, ignite change, and leave you with a sense of hope. Thank you for being part of the Hopeful Horizon community. Until next time, stay resilient, stay just, and always fight for what's right.